Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. Thanks so much for joining me today for this painting tutorial of Waterfalls. We're going to be working on a 9x12 canvas today. I've primed once with white acrylic gesso. Of course you can paint this on a larger canvas if you like. Let's go over the brushes and the colors. To start, I've got a number 12 flat. I'm also going to be using a number 4 filbert, 1-inch oval or round mop brush, or any type of stipple brush. I've also got a micro mini number 10 liner brush. I've got titanium white, Mars black, neon orange, light olive green, phthalo blue, and ultramarine blue. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I want to start working on blocking in some of the area right here across the middle where we're going to have the waterfall and our trees. But I'm going to begin with my peach sunset or sunrise color at the top. So I'm going to get my brush a little bit wet to do this first, dry off any drips, and I'm going to take a little bit of white and a little bit of my neon orange. I'll just mix up the two like this, and I'm just simply going to start the first step by pulling back and forth. I'll do another layer here, bringing it down just a little bit lower. Okay, so that's all we're going to do right now for the first step. I'll wash my brush out. And then right away, I'm going to come in with my ultramarine blue. A little bit of water is on my brush. I'm going to pull across and then bring it up to this top right corner. Back and forth. Now before I do anything else, while this paint is still wet, above our waterfalls, we're just going to pull and flick for a few little trees way back there, and then up along the side, and then up to the top on the left side. So they go taller on either side and then get smaller and smaller there. Okay, then I'm just going to continue along here, get my brush a little bit wet, pick up some more of that blue, and I'm just going to continue doing this a little bit faster now. Now we're going to start to ease off as we get just past halfway here. We're also going to need some turquoise. So I'll go ahead and add my turquoise right there. This is blue turquoise that I'm using. So what I want to do right now is take a little bit of that turquoise while I still have a dirty brush with a little bit of that blue left in there. And I'm just going to start pulling over, taking a little bit more. I'm going to pull in a few little lines here and there, sometimes turning my brush this way to get the use the full width of my brush. And then sometimes I'll turn it this way and pull to make skinnier lines. Okay, I'm going to continue along here. I'm going to add a little bit of white and go right inside where I just went over with that turquoise. This is going to create some softer and lighter shades. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit more. Just turquoise now. So the idea is to have it lighter and brighter here in the center, and then we're going to start to make it darker around the edge. To do that, I'll take another little scoop of my turquoise and just a little bit of my ultramarine blue. And I'm going to come around the edges and the sides. Okay, I'm going to wash my brush out now. And I'm going to come over in the center here and add some more of my ultramarine blue without any turquoise on it. This time, I'm going to start pulling down with it. This is where our waterfalls are going to be coming down. So I'm going to start working on that, the brush strokes that go down for the same direction that our waterfalls will be. Okay, without drying this off, I've washed my brush out. I'm still going to use this flat brush, and I'm just going to kind of slide in here, wiggle, slide in, make sure that the white paint I'm loading up with is on the tip of my brush. That's the only part of the brush that I want to be using. And we're going to start our waterfalls just a little bit below where we left off with our trees. So I'll leave a little, maybe about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch down, and I'll start right here, slightly pull, and then turn and drop. I'm going to load my brush up again, and I'm going to do this a few times. I'm going to do quite a few of these, and you can do more or less than what I've got here if you want. You're going to need to really load your brush up each time. The reason why I'm painting wet on wet like this is because I like the softer tones and shades that I get. So you can see how I'm changing the levels of them up, and I'm overlapping slightly on an angle with my brush. Pull, load my brush up again. So you're just going to slice into that white. And then we'll have a few here that are going to be kind of sneaking around behind the trees or peeking through. And then we're going to have another layer right about here. So I'm going to go pull some white across. I'm going to wash the excess off, collecting quite a bit of blue. And I'm going to load my brush up again. I like how it's spaced out like that and all the bristles are not tightly together. This will create those neat lines and splits in the waterfalls that I really want. So I'm just going to pull and drop. Same with over here. Now I'm picking up some turquoise and blue, which is fine, right? Because we want to incorporate those colors. And I'm going to start to pull and add some white in here, where we're going to have these little pools that are dropping over into little waterfalls here. And then I'm just going to kind of tap with a little bit more white here at the base. So we get a little bit of that commotion at the bottom of the waterfalls, and it looks kind of foamy, and we get some movement. Sometimes what I like to do is turn my brush over and pull up from the bottom as well. That gives a nice look. So remember, this is just the first step. There's going to be more. We're going to layer this and build these waterfalls up with color and shadow and highlights. Okay, now I'm going to switch over to my angle mop brush. This is a 1 inch. Again, you can use any stipple brush, mop brush, even a large filbert brush would work. Something to create a stipple technique with and make it look like foliage. So I'm going to load my brush by taking a little bit of my light olive green. I'm going to take a little bit of phthalo blue and a little bit of black. Okay, I'm going to start by coming in on this edge on an angle. That's why it helps to have the angle mop brush. And I'm just going to start tapping, and I'm going to go slightly over these waterfalls. As I'm doing this, I'm picking up a little bit of white, and that's kind of nice because it's giving me that little bit of a frosty look to my bushes that I like to have, and I'll be adding more of that later on. Okay, so we're going to start here on this side, and I'm going to start at the top here, so we're slightly going over a bit of that peach area and the waterfalls. Load the brush up again. I'm going to leave a few spaces in between, so I'm working in sections here. So we're left with those nice spaces in between that will give us the beginning stages, the first stages of our highlights on our bushes and trees here. With what's left in my brush, I'm going to go along the edge, line it up, pull and flick in, a little bit down below here. This is going to start to give us a little bit more of a shadow. I'm going to take a bit of white, a little bit more here, kind of mix these colors up, make it nice and squishy and flat on the tip. If you're unable to do this, then I would recommend using a filbert brush. I'm wanting to get it nice and rounded and flat together like a filbert. And with this kind of frosty minty color here, all these colors with a bit of white, I'm going to add a little bit along the top here, and then gently pull and flick up. You can even turn your brush this way to create little trees that might be way back there. And I just want to soften this area here. I'm going to take a little bit more of my turquoise, and I'm going to pull over and blend into where I added the darker shadows along the side. This will just give it a little bit more of a blurry, blended look. A little bit of white in there. It's nice to have a few areas where you feel the light hitting. So we'll have it a little bit lighter here in some areas. Take a little bit more of my phthalo blue now. And just pull a little bit of that in there, a little bit of turquoise. Just give us different tones with that bit of shadow underneath. Pull a little bit of that black and green in there. Slightly pull it over, but you see how you get with the wet on wet, you get multi-layered effect like this, and it looks really soft. Okay, with my little filbert brush here, I'm going to take a little bit of my phthalo blue and white, a little bit more white in there, and I'm just going to tap lightly. Just to make this look a little bit more on the blue side. It's drying a little bit more green. And then I'm going to take a little bit of white, just a little bit here, and just soften the top. Tap, tap, tap lightly. You can even kind of make little soft circles, because it's far away, so I want it to look far away, but I also want to have a few of these little lines in here so you can pull in, tap in tiny little trees if you want. I don't know, it's up to you guys how much you want to add, but as long as we have something going on up here. And I'm going to dry this off, and then we're going to start our next step. We're going to work on our highlights of adding more of the blue, phthalo blue and turquoise, minty effect for frost covered trees. I'm going to start adding more to the waterfalls, a few other layers, and then we're going to be coming in with peachy highlights here that will accent the sky and complement the sky. We'll add down below. The last thing we'll be doing is adding our sun rays. What I also want to do is add a few little tree trunks in here, so we'll do that after. And I'm going to start with coming in with our next layer on our waterfalls. So I'm going to be using my flat brush again, and I'm going to take a little bit of white with a little bit of my phthalo blue, and I'm just going to start right at the top here where I did before. We're just going to enhance the color a little bit, so adding a little bit of a different blue. We've got a warm and a cool blue now. And you could use any blue that you want for this painting. Got just a little bit of water on my brush here, and I want to have a little bit coming down here, more on that side, so it looks kind of like icicles and frost covered branches kind of hanging from the tree. Turn your brush this way too if you want to create some narrower lines for your waterfalls. I'm going to show you guys a really neat trick here in a minute with my liner brush. I'm going to add kind of little wiggly taps in here for a little bit of that movement. And I'm going to pull it lighter right in here and right in here. I want to have another lighter patch right here. So I'm just picking a few areas to bring in some more light. And I just had a little drop droplet from my water there, so I went over that with a little bit of my phthalo blue. Okay, I'm gonna wash this brush out. And I'm gonna use my liner brush now. So I'm gonna get a little bit wet and go into my white. And I'm gonna come down and kind of wiggle and kind of make it veiny looking, so you can kind of go up and down, creating like little almost look like little triangles. This will just give it more of that look that there's rocks underneath, and making the waterfalls look a little bit messier and not straight up and down. So I think it works really well if you go from the bottom up as well. You can start from the top and if you want as well in some areas. Okay, I'm going to switch over to my little filbert brush now. And I'm going to take a little bit of my neon orange. Okay, I'm going to go over a little bit right here and just kind of have this dip down a little bit. Scoop up a little bit more. And right in this area here, I want to have that pretty peach glow. And what this specific shade of orange does, when combined over top of that ultramarine blue, as you can see, it turns, it gives it a pinky purpley illusion. It's really, really quite pretty. That's why I'm using this shade. So I'm just going to add a little bit here as well. A little bit down here, a little side to side first. Very little pressure, not pushing hard at all. And then I'm going to add this in the water as well. I want it to be a little bit brighter, so once it dries, I want to make sure that it dries a nice, very soft, peachy glowy shade. I'm going to wash the excess paint out of my brush, dry it off, and very lightly Gently blend this in, soft brush strokes back and forth. I'm going to add a little bit up here. I'm going to go right into my turquoise right away. And add a little bit of turquoise to the water up there. And then right back over. You want the brightest parts of your waterfalls to be on the top ledge here. You need that to separate from the little pools above. Okay, I'm gonna go over, add some more white up here. Maybe a little bit of turquoise in this time, a little bit of white and turquoise. And I'm going to add a little bit more white, layer my white over down here. I'm going to create that pretty foamy look at the bottom of the waterfalls. I'm going to softly pull off a little bit of this here. If you happen to get a little water spot like that, just go over it with those colors again. The white will really help. So I want to have another level of waterfall, a waterfall level right in here. So I need to just go over the background. I can take a little bit of my blues, a little bit of that green black, and just really quickly and easily go like this. To make this one stand out a little bit more, that's all you do is just go from the base up, make the bottom part a little bit darker. But I'll show you how to do that. I'll be doing that towards the end of the video. I'm going to take a little bit of turquoise now, a little bit more. And just pull this in here. And now I'll check and see if there's any other areas here where I can add a little bit of turquoise. Oh, a little bit here and there. Okay, now I'm gonna go into my white. Oops. And from here, pull and drop. Another layer, pull and drop. And then back to my peachy color. I'll add just a little bit of my olive green with some turquoise, white, and a little bit of that. That gives me more of a bright warming up my turquoise a little bit there. So that's pretty. I'm going to add a little bit of that. That with a bit of turquoise is so, or the blue teal is really pretty. Okay. A few more layers to my waterfall with white. Loading my brush up on the tip here, pushing and kind of fanning it out. You can use a fan brush if you want. There are a few different brushes to use. There's lots of options for painting waterfalls. Back a little bit further. Okay, now we can start coming in with our foliage, our highlights. So again, I've got my 1-inch angle mop brush, and I'm going to take a little bit of my turquoise, a little bit of ultramarine blue. Okay, makes a very pretty color. And I'll start by tapping lightly over some of the branches on this side. Load my brush up again. Okay, and we'll start on this side. The idea is to enhance what's already there and not cover up completely what's there. So you want to have the highlight and the shadows working together. And then I always like to just pull what's left on my brush right in there. Okay, now I'm going to take a little bit of white, make a bit of a lighter shade. Just choose a few areas here where it's going to be a little bit brighter. Okay, then I'm going to go right into my peach that I made, and the sunlight is going to be reflecting right here. So we'll just pick a few areas. And then a little pull and drop. Okay, now I'm going to add a few tree trunks in here, so I'll switch over to my liner brush, get a little bit of water on it, and I'm going to take some black with my ultramarine blue. I'll add one coming in from this side, so I'm going to pull, wiggle, twist my brush, Load that up again. Got a few little branches there. And then from this side, all right, after washing that out, I'm going to take some white, a little bit of blue, just to make a highlight color now. And we'll just pick a few areas where we'll add a little bit of snow or frost, kind of a highlight, or a little bit of both to a few branches. And then I'm just gonna tap a little bit so that we have some foliage in front of parts of the branches and the tree trunk. And I'll take my blue and my turquoise again. So I'll just tap lightly. Just a little bit like that. And then I'm going to use my filbert brush to add a little bit on this side. So I'll be adding a little bit of my blue first, blue turquoise. Little taps like this. Then I'll take my white. I'm going to add a little bit of my orange to it for a nice highlight, make it really stand out. Let's pick a few little areas here where kind of pull down. And I want to add a little bit more depth back here, so I'm going to go back into my blue, ultramarine blue. So just a thin layer like this. And a little bit of my peach color. Now, if it doesn't look quite bright enough once that peach dries, I'm just going to add a little bit of white over top. That will really help to bring it back to that nice bright glowing shade that we want. Now you can also make your brights look brighter by adding more dark in between, such as adding a little bit more of your turquoise or teal, like I'm doing right in here. Take a little bit of white with my turquoise and just add a bit right in here. I'm seeing a little bit of the texture of my canvas showing through, so I want to cover that up. Come along the edge here, a little bit of my ultramarine blue and turquoise. So see how we've got multi shades going on here, different blues. Now I'm going to add a little bit of my black blue together here and add just a little bit more. This is going to help this stand out a little bit more too and play on the sun rays that we'll add. Just coming in the base right under the tree line there. A little bit more highlights on the tops of these waterfalls. So just straight white. A little bit here on these branches. So the light's going to be hitting, it's going to be really reflecting right there. Okay, I'll dry this off and then we'll come in and add our sun rays and finish this painting. Okay, so this is pretty much all dry. I think there's just a couple areas in here, but I won't be coming in this area with my sun rays anyways. I'm gonna use my number 12 flat brush, and I wanna make sure I have a little bit of water on it, as well as some white. I'm gonna tint my white with that soft peachy color. So you want to have the paint thin and transparent, but you really don't want it to be dripping. So if your paint is more water and like bubbly and dripping, it's not going to work. Okay, so I'm going to start from the corner and go on a diagonal line, and I'm going to do a few of these in different widths and different lengths. So I'll just start right here on the corner, pull and flick. It's important to kind of get that right pressure on the end, because then you have a nice, it kind of just disappears. Right here, the paint is, this is a good example of where it's a little bit too thick, so you can see the difference it makes. You catch it right away. You can take it off by just going over it. I'm going to come from the top here, add a little bit more white this time. So you can really add, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I've got about 6 here. You just want to make sure that you aren't covering up everything. So maybe just do a few like I've got here and leave it at that. I'll just add the last bit of highlights here. I'm gonna really make this pop using the corner of my brush, a little bit more of my orange this time with a white, and I'll just kind of dab. I want it to have more of a bit of a sparkly effect. So this definitely isn't a stipple brush, but just by kind of tapping and turning my brush around, it'll work. My other ones are wet right now and they're not going to work very well, so you can use pretty much any brush that you have, as long as you apply the paint in a tapping motion like this. Sometimes even just using a little bit of the corner will make it look a little bit more natural too. I'm happy with that. Enhance a little bit more right there to make that stand out. Take advantage of all the darkness I have under there, because I know this will really stand out. Okay, all that's left to do now is sign it and add just one. I just want to add a little bit more of a highlight on some of these branches. I'm just tinting my white again with the orange. Okay, and I think I'll use the same color to sign my painting with. And I just like to use my little liner brush here. I've got some more liner brushes coming in. I'll show you guys once I get them in. This one is by Princeton. It's lasted a long time. And I usually sign my paintings at the bottom right. And I like to sign my whole name. And if I have enough room, I'll put the last 2 digits of what year it is. So depending on when you're watching this, it is 2021 right now. Okay, so this painting is all done. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. It's always a joy to share my paintings with you. Feel free to paint along, share this video with your painting groups, friends, and family, and I'll see you all soon in my next video. Bye, everybody.